Even as Trump launched into a furious tirade, Jasmine Crockett stood her ground with a calm yet resolute strength. She subtly challenged a widely accepted belief that Jared Kushner is unquestionably the father of Ivanka's children. Perhaps she hinted that the story wasn't as certain as everyone assumed. The studio lights glared, cameras zoomed in, and the atmosphere hummed with the usual tension of a political debate. It was meant to be a standard exchange between leaders, often at odds. On one side, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat poised and observant, prepared for questioning. Opposite her was Donald Trump, a man never shy about seizing the spotlight, especially when cameras rolled. From the start, it was clear this would not be a calm discussion. Trump immediately attacked, not with policy points, but with deeply personal barbs. His voice, sharp and familiar, cut through the studio as he leaned into the microphone. He accused Crockett of dishonesty, asserting she had no right to represent the American people. He flung insinuations of murky connections and whispered, "Deals," each word meticulously chosen to destroy her reputation rather than debate her ideas. The audience could almost feel the impact of his words like arrows aimed directly at her. Most people under such intense scrutiny, cameras rolling, millions watching, a former president calling them a fraud, would crumble. Many would shrink, perhaps stammer, or make a nervous defense. But Jasmine Crockett remained perfectly composed. She sat upright, her gaze fixed on Trump, her expression calm, yet intensely focused. It was as if she had anticipated this very assault, as if she had been prepared. When Trump realized his initial volleys failed to unsettle her, he intensified. His voice grew louder, more aggressive, cutting her off at every attempt to speak. He proclaimed her political future non-existent, implying her career was already over. His words were not meant to convince, they were meant to obliterate. Yet a remarkable transformation occurred. The fiercer Trump attacked, the more serene Crockett appeared. She did not raise her voice, nor did she retaliate with insults. Instead, she remained, allowing him to expend his fury, much like an experienced fighter conserving energy while the opponent swings wildly, tiring themselves. Behind that tranquil exterior, Crockett's mind raced. She knew that merely defending herself would be futile. Trump was too loud, too relentless, too skilled at controlling the narrative. To truly cut through the chaos, she required a different tool, and she possessed it. For months, Crockett had guarded sensitive information, a truth capable of dismantling the carefully constructed image Trump had built around his family. She had not planned to reveal it tonight. But as Trump's attacks escalated beyond argument into personal character assaults, a realization struck her. This was the moment. Slowly, deliberately, she leaned forward. Her hands pressed firmly onto the desk. Her voice, though calm, was steady and powerful enough to pierce Trump's unrelenting interruptions. The audience, still caught in the whirlwind of Trump's rage, remained unaware. But Crockett was ready to dramatically shift the direction of the conversation. She would not play Trump's game of defense and counter-insult. Instead, she would expose a secret long buried beneath layers of silence and denial. And she knew precisely where to begin, with Ivanka Trump. The moment she decided to bring Ivanka into the discussion, Crockett stepped onto perilous ground. Trump might hurl insults at politicians all day, but the instant his family became involved, the true storm began. The audience did not anticipate it. The hosts were unprepared. Even Trump himself, sharp and defensive as always, was blindsided. But Jasmine Crockett was ready. This was not just another live debate. This was about to become the moment hidden truths emerged, where the clash between a powerful man and a determined congresswoman would enter unexpected territory. The room tensed. Cameras zoomed in closer. The audience leaned toward their screens. And with a single line, Crockett would seize command of the entire night. The moment hung, charged like electricity before a storm. Jasmine Crockett had endured Trump's insults, his attempts to silence her voice, and his loud attacks aimed at destroying her credibility. But now the tables were about to turn. She leaned in, her voice lower, steadier, more deliberate. Every eye in the studio fixed on her. Then, with a calm that cut through the chaos, she spoke. Sometimes the truth about family lineage is hidden in plain sight. And it's time to stop hiding. It was only one sentence, yet it landed like a thunderclap. The hosts froze. The crew froze. Even the audience at home sensed something monumental was about to unfold. And for the first time that night, Trump did not immediately interrupt. For a brief moment, he was silent. But Crockett was not finished. She let the silence stretch, heightening suspense, before delivering a line that sent the studio into shock. There is significant reason to question the widely accepted claim that Jared Kushner is the father of Ivanka's children. Gasps rippled across the room. The hosts blinked in disbelief. A camera operator nearly lost focus, his lens jerking as if he could not believe what he had just captured. And the audience at home leaned closer to their screens, hearts racing, struggling to absorb the revelation. It was not just shocking, it was perilous. Crockett had not revealed everything, not yet. She had given just enough to shake the foundation beneath Trump's feet. Just enough to spark doubt. The hosts attempted to regain control. Congresswoman Crockett, confronted, his voice trembling slightly, asked, "Are you saying what it sounds like? You're suggesting Ivanka's children might not." He trailed off, seemingly afraid to finish, but Crockett did not answer directly. She leaned back slightly, expression unreadable, conveying that the power of silence could outweigh words. Trump, however, could not remain quiet. His face flushed crimson, his voice rose, and he erupted. "Lies! Disgusting lies!" he shouted, jabbing his finger across the table. "This is fake! This is garbage! You attack my family because you have nothing else!" He continued, his fury unchecked, his words striking with the same intensity as before. Voice echoing louder than anyone else in the room. He accused Crockett of plotting against him, accused the hosts of staging a smear, accused everyone on set of conspiring against his family. But the more he shouted, the more apparent it became. He was rattled. The audience could see it. His fury lacked the confident swagger they had expected. This was different. His words tripped over each other. His interruptions became frantic. His body leaned forward aggressively as if trying to end the conversation with sheer force. And that reaction, that raw, uncontrolled anger, only amplified Crockett's words, as if there was truly merit to her suggestion. Why would Trump be so desperate to silence it? The hosts noticed it, too. They probed again, more cautiously this time. "Congresswoman, you've just raised something remarkable. Can you elaborate? Can you clarify your meaning?" Crockett's eyes flicked to Trump, then back to the hosts. Her calmness was almost unsettling compared to his chaos. She chose her words with care, not rushing, not revealing everything at once. "I think the American people deserve honesty," she said plainly. "And sometimes the stories we are told do not align with the evidence we uncover." The room tensed once more, each second stretching longer than the last. Trump interjected with another furious denial, branding her a disgrace and an embarrassment. He tried to overwhelm her with volume, his voice nearly trembling with rage. But Crockett did not yell back. She didn't need to. She had planted the seed, the thought, the suspicion, and that made it powerful. The audience watching did not need every detail yet. They didn't need proof spelled out right then. All they needed was the question lodged in their minds. What if Jared Kushner isn't the father of Ivanka's children? It was the kind of idea that couldn't be ignored. It was the kind of hint that lingered, whispered, and grew stronger the more someone tried to suppress it. And as Trump's fury filled the studio, as he waved his hands and pounded the table, the contrast was stark. His anger only made Crockett appear calmer, stronger, more credible. The more he tried to silence her, the more the audience wanted to hear her words. And Crockett knew it. She had not revealed the full bombshell yet. Not even close. But by carefully choosing her words and letting the tension rise, she had already seized control of the entire broadcast. Everyone in the studio, hosts, crew, even Trump himself, recognized one thing. Whatever came next, it would change everything. The moment Jasmine Crockett dropped her cryptic hint, Donald Trump's composure began to crack. It wasn't a slow decline, but sharp and immediate, like glass shattering on the floor. At first, he attempted a forced laugh, awkward and unconvincing, not matching the look in his eyes. He wagged a finger across the desk and said, "Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Nobody believes that nonsense." But the tremor in his voice betrayed him. And then, almost instantly, his temper erupted. His face flushed red, his jaw clenched, and he leaned so far across the desk, it seemed he might step out of his chair. His voice rose with each word, reverberating through the studio. "Lies! Pure lies!" he shouted, stabbing the air with his finger. "This is a disgrace, this woman is a disgrace. She should be ashamed of herself for saying this garbage on television." The hosts shifted uneasily, attempting to calm the chaos. But Trump ignored them. He spoke over them, over Crockett, over anyone who dared open their mouth. He didn't merely want to disagree. He wanted to smother the conversation completely. Yet the more he shouted, the more it appeared Jasmine Crockett had struck a raw nerve, something sensitive. Because if her words were truly meaningless, wouldn't he have brushed them off? Wouldn't he have smiled, shook his head, and called it absurd? That is what confident people do when faced with baseless claims. They dismiss. They don't explode. But Trump was not dismissing. He was unraveling. Crockett, meanwhile, remained still. She didn't match his volume. She didn't return insults. Didn't flinch. She simply observed him, calm, steady, her eyes fixed on him as if she could see straight through the rage too. The fear beneath it. It was like watching two fighters in the ring. One swinging wildly without control, the other standing firm, letting the storm rage without moving an inch. The host tried again to intervene. So, President, let her finish, one began. Trump cut them off immediately. I know she's not going to sit here and spread disgusting lies about my family. She's attacking Ivanka. She's attacking my grandchildren. It's evil, sick, and you're all letting her do it. He slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the studio. The crew shifted nervously behind the cameras. The host exchanged uneasy glances, and millions watching at home could see it clearly. Trump wasn't just angry, he was shaken. Meanwhile, Crockett finally spoke again, her tone quiet but cutting through the noise like a blade. Mr. Trump, she said softly, if what I said isn't true, why are you so afraid of it? That question lingered like smoke in the air. The studio went silent. For the first time all night, Trump did not instantly respond. Come back. His mouth opened, then closed again before he erupted into another furious denial. This is disgusting. You're trying to ruin families, trying to destroy lives. You should be ashamed. This is all fake. It's all fabricated. But his fury no longer carried the same force. The louder he became, the more desperate he appeared, and the calmer Crockett remained, the stronger she seemed. The audience at home could feel it. The power had shifted. Trump's shouting wasn't silencing her. It was amplifying her. Every interruption, every outburst, every furious denial only made her suggestion sound more credible. The hosts leaned forward nervously, pressing again. Congresswoman, this is serious. Are you saying you have actual proof? Trump tried to intervene, waving his hands, shouting, Don't answer that. Don't you dare answer that. But Crockett didn't even glance at him. She looked straight at the hosts, her eyes steady, her voice unwavering. And in that moment, everyone in the studio and everyone watching at home realized something. Trump had lost control. The man who prided himself on dominating every stage, who never let anyone else steal the spotlight, was now drowning in his own fury. And Jasmine Crockett, calm and collected, was quietly pulling the ground out from beneath him. The clash had shifted. It was no longer Trump versus Crockett. It was Trump versus his own temper, and he was losing. The tension had reached a breaking point. Trump was red-faced, pounding the desk, spitting words faster than the microphones could capture. He shouted about lies, conspiracies, disgrace. But Jasmine Crockett stayed perfectly composed, her hands folded neatly, her eyes locked straight ahead. The hosts leaned in, voices trembling as they asked the question. Everyone at home was screaming inside. Congresswoman Crockett, are you saying you have proof? For a moment, silence blanketed the studio. Trump's chest heaved with rage. The audience held their breath. And Crockett, steady as stone, finally spoke. My investigation, she said, her voice calm but sharp as glass, uncovered compelling evidence that challenges the accepted story, and it points toward unexpected family connections directly linked to Donald Trump. The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. The reaction was immediate. The hosts gasped. Crew members behind the cameras exchanged stunned glances. The audience watching at home felt their hearts racing. Trump erupted. Lies. Total lies. Made up by losers, by haters, by people who want to destroy me. He slammed his fist again, his voice cracking under the weight of his anger. This is all fake. None of it is true. You're disgusting for even saying this on air. But Crockett didn't back down. She leaned closer to her microphone, her voice cutting through his rage like a blade through thick fog. I spent months on this investigation, she continued. I spoke to people close to your family. I verified documents never meant to see the light of day. I compared timelines of Ivanka's pregnancies, your whereabouts, your private movements, and the pattern is undeniable. The hosts froze. The studio filled with whispers, gasps, the shuffling of chairs. Trump barked denials, his words tumbling over each other as he waved his hands, trying to block the sound of her voice. But the more he shouted, the clearer she became. I have testimonies, she said firmly. Insiders from your own circle who could no longer bear the weight of what they knew. Leaked photographs, written records, evidence that directly challenges the story you've sold to the public. Trump pounded the desk again. None of it's real. You're lying. They're all liars. You're trying to destroy my family because you can't beat me any other way. His fury filled the room, but it only fueled the moment. Viewers weren't seeing a calm leader denying an outrageous claim. They were seeing a man losing his grip on live television. Beside him sat a woman who wasn't blinking, wasn't breaking, wasn't even raising her voice. Crockett's next words came slowly, deliberately, like each one was a nail being hammered into the coffin of silence that had protected the Trump family for years. I didn't want to go here, but after tonight, after you tried to smear me with false accusations, I refused to stay silent. The American people deserve to know who is shaping their future and what kind of secrets are being buried behind closed doors. The studio went dead quiet. Even Trump, for a split second, seemed stunned into silence. His eyes darted left and right, searching for a way to shut it down. Then, almost on cue, he launched back into his furious denials, his voice louder than ever. But the damage was done. Crockett had ripped open a door that could never be closed again. She had taken whispers and rumors and elevated them into the public eye. And she had done it in the one place where it couldn't be hidden, spun, or quietly erased, live on national television. As the host tried to regain control, as Trump shouted himself hoarse, as the audience sat stunned, one thing became clear. This was no longer about a political debate. This was about power, truth, and secrets that could shake the foundation of a family and maybe even the country. And with every furious denial, Donald Trump made it look less like a baseless attack and more like Jasmine Crockett had struck the truth. The studio had never felt so tense. Cameras kept rolling, lights burned hotter, and every person watching knew they weren't just witnessing another political spat. Something far deeper had just been pulled into the open. Donald Trump was still raging, his voice echoing across the set. He shouted about conspiracies, about people out to destroy him, about enemies who would stop at nothing. His fists hit the desk again and again, as if volume and force could erase what had just been said. But the more he shouted, the more hollow it sounded. His anger wasn't silencing the moment, it was fueling it. And Jasmine Crockett, she remained calm, steady, almost unnervingly composed. While Trump flailed and raged, she sat with the quiet power of someone who had already won the battle. Every denial from Trump only made her claims sound more believable. Every furious outburst made the contrast between them sharper. Finally, when the host managed to quiet the storm for just a second, Crockett spoke again, her voice low, but carrying a weight that no amount of shouting could drown out. I didn't bring this forward to smear a family, she said. I brought it forward because when private secrets shape public power, the people deserve the truth. Too often, the lives of those in charge don't match the image they sell to the country. In that disconnect, it matters. The host leaned forward, hanging on her every word. Even the audience, silent for what felt like minutes, seemed frozen in place. She continued, Tonight, I revealed this here live because if I hadn't, it would be buried, hidden, locked away where no one could question it. And I believe in accountability. I believe the truth doesn't belong to the powerful. It belongs to the people. Her words cut through the heavy air like a blade. And though she had not laid out every piece of evidence on camera, the message was unmistakable. This was only the beginning. Trump, however, couldn't contain himself. His face burned red, his hands waved furiously, and his voice cracked with rage. None of this is true. It's a hit job. She's lying to all of you. She should be thrown out of Congress for this. She should be sued. He pounded the desk once more, his fury boiling over for the world to see. But as his denials grew louder, his composure slipped further. What people saw wasn't just anger. It was fear. Fear that the questions Crockett had raised couldn't simply be brushed aside. Fear that once spoken aloud, this secret could never be shoved back into silence. The hosts, wide-eyed and shaken, tried to move on, but there was no moving on. The tension clung to the air. Every person in that studio knew the show had crossed into history. Every viewer at home knew they had just seen something raw, unfiltered, unforgettable. Crockett ended with one final statement. Calm but resolute. This isn't about me. It isn't even about you, Mr. Trump. It's about truth. Because when the truth is hidden, democracy itself is at risk. I won't let that happen. And with that, the conversation was over. Trump was still shouting, still red with fury. But Crockett's words lingered longer than his volume. The cameras caught it all. The fury, the calm, the clash of power and truth. And as the broadcast ended, one question burned into the minds of everyone watching. If this is what Crockett was willing to reveal live on air, what else does she have? The answer wasn't given that night, but the seed had been planted. The questions were alive, and no matter how loudly Trump denied, the echoes of Crockett's bombshell would not fade away. For the first time in years, the unshakable Donald Trump looked truly shaken.